Hey, and welcome to Colby's Corner. Today we will be having an adventure at Charlestown Landing. Stay tuned because Colby's Corner starts now. Hey, and now we're here at the Visitor Center of Charlestown Landing, and Mr. Rob is going to give us a tour of the exhibit hall. So this is the exhibit hall that we're going into, and what is the exhibit hall? What is in it?
Well, the exhibit hall, it tells the history of this particular piece of property.
What room is this that we're walking in?
Well, the name of this room is called A New Opportunity on the Horizon. And this tells about some influential men in England at the time who were close to King Charles II in the 1660s, and he wanted to reward them for restoring him to the throne of England. So he told them about Carolina, and he gave them land grants to start a new world or a new colony in what's now the United States.
So what is all this on the walls and everything?
Well, this is a picture of King Charles II. And this exhibit is telling about those first founders, what colonies already existed on this map, and then to your left there are the men who established the colony.
What is this right here?
This is an exhibit. It's just a display board that we had designed to tell about the other colonies that were already existing. New Amsterdam is what is now New York, and Jamestown, St. Mary City, and Plymouth were the most prominent European colonies at that time period.
I'm guessing Plymouth Rock was in Plymouth?
That's right. But the most important man was Lord Anthony Ashley Cooper.
Is he on this?
He's got his own picture over here.
Huh.
He was the Earl of Shaftesbury, and he was the man who really pushed to settle Charlestown. And the two rivers in Charleston that flowed together to form the Atlantic Ocean, as people in Charleston say, are the Ashley and Cooper rivers, and they're named after him.
What is this dice then? It looks like...
This is an exhibit called What's in It for Me. This tells about landowners, it tells about women, men, servants, and slaves. But you can turn them. If you were a woman, a free single female, and you wanted to take the trip to Carolina, what did you get? So you turn it, well, you just turn it once, and you automatically get a gift of 150 acres of land.
Awesome.
And if you bring a servant with you, you get another 150 acres. So it's all about getting land and establishing a home.
So where am I? I want to be a free married man.
A free married man.
And if I go to the Carolina, I would have 150 plus 150 plus 100. So I would have 400 acres of land.
That's right. That's if you were a free man.
And you went.
You get 150 acres. If you bring your wife with you, another 150 acres. So you have 300 acres total.
And then
if you bring another indentured servant, you get another 100 acres. So you get 100 acres just for having a servant.
Wow.
So then you have 400 acres total. So that's a pretty large piece of land. If you think about it, just this park, this one park is 664 acres. So this guy would own almost this entire park just for bringing his wife and an indentured servant. But this is about what was going on in the world, and then they had to get ready for the trip. So the next room they go on into is telling them about what they need and who all got on the ship to come to the New World.
So now we're in the Ocean Voyage to the Barbados room. Can you tell us a little bit about what is in here?
Yeah, this exhibit room tells us about what the settlers needed to carry on the trip with them to get ready not only for the voyage, but what they needed when they arrived in the New World. And it shows a model of the ship, the Carolina, which is the primary ship the settlers took across the Atlantic Ocean. And it would have held about 150 passengers, plus all the goods and provisions that they needed to establish a colony.
Oh, and what is behind us in these containers?
These are shipping containers of the 17th century. They most likely took barrels like this and shipped goods in them. And if you see this list up here on the wall, it tells that they had 10 dozen felling axes, and it's under the letter A, and that's in this box right here. So you see the axe heads.
And that's how many? It says?
Well, all of them aren't in that one box, but
Oh.
they took that many with them, so they had a large number of these boxes or crates with axe heads in them.
Yes.
And they also had hatchets.
And
this barrel.
This is I. So 20 dozen of shoes.
20 dozen shoes.
That's
So there are
20
a bunch of
times
shoes in that barrel.
240 shoes in here.
That's right.
Wow.
But those barrels can be used to ship just about anything. You can put cloves. That barrel has peas in it. That small barrel has lead shot in it. And this barrel has what in it?
G and H.
Has clothes.
Clothes?
Yep, shirts and hats and pants.
10 dozen of red caps and 20 dozen of shirts. Wow. So now what room are we walking into now?
Well, now that we know what the settlers carried to the New World, now we need to know what they carried it on. So we're walking into the belly of a ship. And this talks about the voyage to Carolina. Tells about the things they encountered, some of the foods they had or were looking for to plant in the New World, and it talks about the seas and the route that the settlers took. So remember earlier I was telling you that the ship Carolina was blown off course and went to Bermuda?
Yes, sir.
It's heading over here,
But
so the storm blew it all the way to Bermuda.
oh, wow.
And then they had to refit the ship. It was damaged before it could set sail to Carolina. And even then, it settled up
a little high.
up high. This is an interactive exhibit. It tells about calculations about your speed, which was known as knots, and then how weather affected the ship. And if you took the most accurate measurements, you might end up somewhere in that range if your measurements were accurate. So they were pretty lucky to land in Charlestown. But if a storm blows you off course, you may end up in anywhere in that area, and they did. They ended up in Bermuda.
Yeah, that's in the Carolina.
That's a long way away.
Yes, and it says using the cross staff. What is the cross staff?
This is a cross staff.
What does it do?
This gives you your longitude and latitude measuring off of the sun. So the sailors had to, the navigator had to hold that cross staff up, look at the sun, to tell which direction he was going. I'm sure you've seen a pirate movie and a pirate had a patch over his eye. This cross staff is most likely why, because he looked into the sun too long and it burned his retina and he went blind in his eye.
So where are we and what are we wearing?
Well, we've evidently gone back to the 1600s. We have on clothes that would have been worn in the 1670s. You have on a gentleman's coat. It's a long coat. It's pretty heavy, isn't it? It's made out of wool. And this vest that I have on would have actually gone under that coat. Do you think you would have been warm?
Yes.
Yes, I think so too. And in the trunk, this is John Horton's trunk. John Horton was a settler who was here in 1674, and we found a list of what he had in his trunk, which would have been his suitcase, basically. He would have had some shirts. He had one white ditto and 3 old blue shirts, as it shows right there.
Oh,
And then he had some wool pants,
Yeah.
like that. See how big they are?
Wow.
Pants had to last them a long time, so they had to be adjustable. So as he grew,
Wow.
the pants could get bigger along with him.
Wow. So big.
And they wore these kinds of clothes year-round. In the winter, they would put on some more layers, but even in the summertime, they would wear long
this?
sleeves and vests and long sleeve shirts and long pants. They didn't have shorts and t-shirts and flip-flops like we have now.
Wow, I gotta pack all this up to go on this trip? Oh, hey, how you guys doing out there? Painter Pete here. You know, looks like Colby is learning some really neat stuff there at Charlestown Landing. You know, have you ever thought about what it would have been like to have moved to a new place? Well, some of us have, some of you have too. I mean, if your dad's like a pastor, your mom's a pastor, or your dad or mom's in the military, sometimes you have to move to a new place. You leave everything behind and you move to that new place. You know, but have you ever thought about what it would be like if you were moving from one country to another country where nobody had ever really been? Well, that's something that we're learning today at Charlestown Landing. You know, there's also a scripture in the Bible that talks about that. Did you know that? Did you know that God asked somebody to go to a new place that they had never been to before? Yeah, and his name was Abram. And later on you found out that his name actually became Abraham. You know, Father Abraham had many sons. You know, that song, I'm not going to sing it for you because I'm really not a good singer. But here, let's look at that verse, okay? It's found in Genesis 12, verse 1. All right, here we go. All right, so it's in Genesis 12, verse 1, and it says, "The Lord said to Abram, leave your country and your people, leave your father's family, and go to the country that I will show you." See, so God told Abram to leave his country where he was living and go to a new country. You know, that's kind of somewhat similar to what happened to the settlers that moved from England or Barbados or wherever they were at that came to Charlestown. You know, it's really cool getting to see all this different stuff and seeing a lot of different aspects of how people lived, how people traveled, some of the clothes they wore. Yeah, Colby, I think it would be rather hot in that outfit too. But man, I'm glad we got shorts and flip-flops and t-shirts that we get to wear now because, you know, it gets hot enough in this. And I couldn't even imagine wearing wool all the time. Well, hey, Colby is going to continue on his adventure there at Charlestown Landing. Let's go ahead and join him.
So now we're here with Mr. John, and we're going to go on an adventure in the adventure. And we're on the adventure, right?
Correct. That is the name of this vessel. And the Adventure is more or less a replica of what you might consider the FedEx delivery van of its time period. Because in the grand scheme of things, it's not a very big boat for the 17th century. But if you think about a FedEx van, I'm talking about the van, next to an 18-wheeler, that gives you the perspective of where this boat would rank in terms of size. Now, the reason that boats of this size were so popular during the early years of the Carolina colony, when Charlestown was located up here on what they called Albemarle Point, is because this is the biggest boat that you can get into this tidal creek here off of the Ashley River out there and turn around and get back out. That was key, getting back out. Because larger vessels would have to anchor out in the Ashley. And they would have to unload their goods into smaller boats, and they'd have to bring the smaller boats in here and unload them again, and then reload the boats and then take them back out and load them back on the larger vessels. So that was kind of a hassle. And these boats were able to operate independently, and they could go anywhere in the Atlantic world you wanted to go, bringing supplies or bringing items that they would trade to get the supplies that they needed.
So I don't see like a steering wheel or anything. How would you steer this boat?
Well, come on back here. We're gonna check out
This is the
what is
back of the boat?
called the quarterdeck. Yes, we are now in the stern of the vessel.
So this is the back.
This is the back. The steering wheel would not start appearing on boats until the early 18th century. That's the early 1700s. And this boat is representing a vessel from the 1670s. So we're a little bit too early for the steering wheel. So what they used was this arm sticking out here. It's called the tiller. The tiller is connected to a big fin on the back of the boat called a rudder. Now, Colby, you look like a pretty strong guy. Do you think you're capable of moving 1 ton worth of weight? You think you can move 1 ton?
Is the
Pull that back towards you. Here, look at that, one-handed. Yes, that rudder back there weighs 2,000 pounds. It's 2 pieces of solid oak joined together, the longest of which is 16 feet. It goes all the way down into the water.
And it weighs that much?
It sure does.
Doesn't feel like that.
That's because you have mechanical advantage. You get leverage by using the tiller. And the rudder's connected to the boat using hinges and pins, so it reduces friction. You're a math guy.
Oh. So like, and they would, if we would come this way, they would sleep and like, they would go down these stairs and just sleep in there? Or?
Well, the boat is divided down below into 3 compartments. The largest compartment is in the middle, and it is called the hold. That's where they would pack all of the cargo that they were moving. Then at the end, either end of the hold are where the common sailors and the officers would have slept. The captain had his own private cabin down below this hatch here.
Can we go under there?
Yes.
And go see all
Yeah,
this?
you can check out the bunks where the common sailors would have slept. Just hold onto that rope. There you go.
And you just get on this ladder and go up there?
Yes, because
It was open?
we've done a couple of things to make this boat more convenient for our visitors. Historically, this door would not have even been here. The only way into the captain's cabin would have been topside through the hatch using the ladder. You also would not have been able to step right up into
The bunk
the
beds?
forecastle, which is the name of that room where the common sailor slept. There would have been a solid wall there as well.
For what?
It's a lot easier to pack your cargo
Going
when you have
down.
solid walls on every side. There also would not have been this nice level floor below us. It would have followed the contours of the ribs of the hull all the way down to the top of the keel. So that would give you extra packing room, and you would be able to carry about 34 tons worth of goods on a boat of this size and design.
So how big would the crew be?
The crew on a vessel of this size would vary depending on the length of the voyage, but you're looking at anywhere from 6 to 12. If you're going to Barbados, which was one of the main trading partners with the early Carolina colony, that's about a 16-day voyage if everything goes right. So you're probably going to have 9 common sailors and 3 officers. The common sailors would have slept in these bunks, whereas the officers had their private cabin in the back. See, that way you might have to share a bunk with somebody, but not at the same time. It's what they call hot racking in the Navy. So somebody would always have to be up topside working. So you'd rotate. Somebody would sleep, somebody would be eating, somebody would be working, and then you'd work your way through.
And then get to sleep
And then you get to
working.
sleep after a really hard, long day of work.
And they would just sleep in these things.
Yes, now they would have mattresses, canvas stuffed with some sort of soft material. And these are deceptively small. It's because they're partially enclosed, so you don't roll out. Each one of the berths here is about the size of a modern-day twin bed.
And they would just get in this and just go to sleep.
Yes, especially after a hard day, it might not look like the most comfortable bed to sleep in, but I'm sure that they definitely appreciated being able to get some rest after a long day on the boat.
I think I've had a hard day, so can I sleep in here?
Sure.
Okay.
Now don't snore too loud, though.
Okay. Okay, so now I feel rested. So where are we?
Well, now that you're rested, we're going to make an indentured servant out of you, and this is the type of house that you would have lived in. So you want to come inside and check out your living quarters?
Sure.
What's one of the first things you notice about this house?
It's made of wood.
It's made out of wood, yeah. What else?
It doesn't have concrete flooring.
It doesn't have a floor,
Floor.
right? It has a dirt floor. Well, that's because the colonists who settled Charlestown in the year 1670, they were using this as a starter settlement. You know, they were worried about the Spanish attacking, so they chose this location because it's surrounded on 3 sides by marsh. So does this look like a house that they built to last for a long time?
No, not
Not
really.
yeah, because you don't have a brick or stone foundation. They used a type of architecture called post in the ground. See, these posts are sunk directly into the ground. And you know what happens to wood when it gets old if it's in the ground?
They like fall.
Yeah, it rots. Yeah, so they didn't spend a lot of time and effort building a communal lodging house like this. But if you would have been an indentured servant, which was someone who had agreed to work for someone else in order to come to the New World and have more opportunity, you might have had to share a house of this size with 10 people. Imagine living in a house of this size with 10 people. They would have slept up here in the sleeping loft.
How did they even get up there?
They would have used a ladder. Of course, everything that you can think of that runs on electricity did not exist in the 17th century. So there's no video games, there are no computers, there are no cell phones, there are no iPads, there's no air conditioning. If you want air conditioning, you open your windows. If you want heat, you build a fire in the fireplace.
Wow.
It's a pretty big fireplace, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
That's because that's the kitchen. That's where they would have to prepare their meals over an open fire.
with Mr. Rob again. And what do we have here?
Well, we're in the animal forest, and this is an exhibit that exhibits species of animals that the first settlers in 1670 might have encountered in Charlestown. And we just had a black bear in front of us, and his name is Memphis, and he must have heard he was going to be on TV, and he ran away.
Oh, he's coming.
Here he comes back.
His name is Memphis.
Yeah, his name is Memphis. And he's a big bear. He weighs between 300 and 400 pounds, and he stands about 7 feet tall.
He's like my dog. I got a black lab, and he looks just kind of like him, the way he walks and everything.
Bears are actually related to canines or dogs.
He's just walking back and forth.
But bears roamed wild in this area, and the settlers may have used the bear for its fur or its meat or something like that. Colby, do you know any other names for a puma?
Bobcat?
Bobcat? That's a different cat. We have those here too. Have you ever heard of a cougar?
Yes.
Or a mountain lion?
Yes. That's a puma?
Or a panther?
Yes.
All of those are pretty much the same cat. And they're all referring to a puma, and a puma is its scientific name.
Oh, I don't see it anymore.
Did he move? It's most
Probably
likely
just where I
still
am
lying
right
in
now.
the same place. But all of the animals are very good at hiding, and they do that why?
So they don't get eaten.
That's right, to protect themselves. That's right. So other animals won't eat them, and so they
That'll
can
take a
sneak
pretty
up
big. They'll take a pretty.
smaller animals.
That'll take a pretty big bear to, or some pretty big animal to eat that puma.
It would. What kind of animal do you think a puma might eat?
Rabbits,
Right. Anything else?
squirrel,
Squirrel.
fish. I don't
You
know.
might catch fish, raccoons, maybe even a deer or a small deer.
Huh.
So they hunt. Now, Colby, now these are the bison.
Wow.
We have 4 of them.
Well, where's the fourth? I only see 3.
It's right behind that big oak tree there. Let's see this big one out front?
Yes, sir.
We call him Mo. And he's the largest one, and he's called the alpha male. He's in charge of the herd. He controls everything.
And look at all the fur from the bison on the fence right there.
Right, you see the fur on the fence, and look at the bison. You see it all clumped up on their skin.
Yes, sir.
They're shedding because it's hot, so they come over to the fence and rub up against the fence to scrape it off.
Wow. Yeah,
You see that one just stood up. See how large they are?
he is big. Can you control shedding? Can they control their shedding, or
No, they can't control it, but it typically begins in late spring when the temperature starts getting warmer, and their heavy fur from the winter falls off. Similar to a dog sheds its fur in the spring and summer months too when it gets hot.
Huh. So what did they use the bison for?
Well, the settlers, even before the settlers used the bison, the Native Americans would have used the bison, and they would have used everything. They would have used the fur for clothing, for blankets, for flooring to cover the dirt floors of their lodges, and they would have also used their meat for food. And even their horns and hooves, possibly for tools or something like that.
Is that one trying to get up because its legs are sticking up and it's rolling?
It is. It's rolling in the ground so it can coat itself with dirt. It helps keep it cool, keep its skin from getting sunburned, and helps keep bugs from biting it.
Oh.
And of course, the settlers, when they met the natives taught them everything they know about bison, and the settlers would have used them the same way. We're behind the scenes of the otter habitat. And these are the cages where we hold them when they're not on exhibit. And this is where we give them food and also enrichment. And enrichment, that's what that duck decoy is. It provides some entertainment for the otters to keep their minds and bodies active.
They look very playful.
Otters are very playful. They're basically a natural entertainer. They like to show off for whomever's looking at them.
He's sliding on them.
And they'll wrestle and tussle in the water and on land and swim and dive to show off. And otters have very oily skin and lots and lots and lots of hair.
Yes.
And I think I'm correct when I say they have about 1 million hairs per square inch. But doesn't he look awfully friendly?
Mm-hmm.
They have very, very sharp teeth.
Oh.
And every once in a while they might show them to you. So see his claws?
Yeah.
And the otters just stand up like that, and our zookeepers have trained them to stand up at some time so we can look at their bodies to see if they're injured or sick or need to take care of them.
Oh. Okay, now we've had our adventure down here at Charlestown Landing. Thank you, Mr. Rob, for letting us come out here.
Thank you for coming out. My pleasure.
And let's go see what Painter Pete's doing.
All right, will 3 brushes be enough for this trip? Oh, hey, welcome back. All right, so I'm still working on getting everything packed up for my trip. You know, I'm just doing a short trip, not a long trip like the settlers did coming here to Charlestown. You know, it's been a really great time getting to see all of this stuff at Charlestown, seeing how they lived, how they traveled over here. You know, that adventure boat, that is really neat. I couldn't imagine being on that little boat for that long a time, you know, even though there's only, what do you say, 6 to 12 people on there. Those are pretty close quarters on there, you know. And seeing those different animals that were here, you know, seeing that puma for the first time, that would kind of scare me. That is one big cat. Now, do you remember the scripture that we had earlier? You do? All right. Remember where it's found? All right, that's right. It's found in Genesis 12, verse 1. All right. Let's see here. Which brush do I want to use? I'll use this one. This is my normal brush for this. Here we go. All right. So it's Genesis 12, verse 1. It says, "Leave your country and your people, leave your father's family, and go to the country that I will show you." Hey, I want to hear from you this week. So send me an email and tell me if you've ever moved, and if you have, where have you moved to? Remember, before you send me that email, get your parents' permission first. So email us at askcolby@WLCN.tv. Hey, you know what? Also visit us at facebook.com at Colby's Corner, or go to our website, colbyscornertv.com. Hey, I will see you next week right here on Colby's Corner.